I am still pinching myself, so stay tuned. Hey there, it's Teddy coming to you from down in my record room with another vinyl orgy. This time around, it's keyed off of an album that I stumbled upon in the wild. Really amazed to find it. And it spurred, a series of listenings, kind of down the rabbit hole of connective tissue, where everything I'll show today has a relationship in some sort of way. And at the end, oh man, another find in the wild that is an all-time find. All-time classic, desert island, everything. I mean, as I said, I'm still pinching myself. So hang in there. Other than that, let's get to it. Well, first up is this beautiful album that I was really, really surprised to find in the wild and in such great condition. It's called Themes for African Drums by the Guy Warren Sounds. It's a 1959 RCA Victor release by an artist, Guy Warren, who is immensely influential and hardly known. Guy Warren was a drummer from Ghana who migrated over to the United States in the early 1950s to pursue his take, his vision and version of jazz. He settled in Chicago and had different groups. In particular, this group is a trio, and of course they would have been quite exotic at the time by their manner of dress. Here you can see Guy Warren using, a conga drum in place of a tom-tom. And I got to think in, mid-1950s Chicago that one Mr. Sun Ra must have encountered this group and taken some clues and cues from moving forward. I don't have evidence, hard evidence of that, but you got to think that there was some rub-off there. Guy Warren also rubbed elbows with some jazz greats here. He's seen with Charlie Parker, swapping clothes. That's Guy Warren in the front with Parker's jacket, and Parker looks a bit out of place with Warren's garb. But there was an intention there that they were going to perform and record together, but unfortunately that didn't happen because Parker passed away shortly after this photo was taken. But it would have been interesting to see what would have happened, how his influence may have come into play sooner had they done that. Max Roach, the great drummer, he said that they just didn't quite understand what Guy Warren was trying to say at that time, and it took him a while to clue in. But he said he was just so ahead of everybody else. And there was one drummer in Great Britain, the great jazz drummer Phil Seaman, who did clue in sooner than others, and he had a young drummer he took under his wing named Ginger Baker, and put forth concepts of African drumming and African rhythms, and Baker just took that and blew it out. So, Guy Warren's influence extends both into the jazz realm and the rock realm, and it is alive and well today and will continue into the future. Again, this is a 1959 recording with a typical exploitative cover for the time. But contained within is very traditional take on African drums, rhythms. There's chanting going. It's very, very fresh sounding even for today. There is a track where he is with a jazz trio of vibes, bass, and drums, as you saw in the photo previously. But this is, mostly just, well recorded in living stereo, African drumming and rhythms. I'm just so happy to have found it and added it to collection. Guy Warren, after he had a few recordings here in the States, took off back to Ghana. He changed his name to Kofi Ganaba and kind of became a recluse, but he certainly left his mark. For certain, he left his mark quite deep and quite long. So if you have a chance, check him out, Guy Warren. Again, this is from 1959 on RCA Victor. Themes for African Drums by the Guy Warren Sounds. Well, as I said, after finding that incredible Guy Warren album, I became really interested in re-listening and re-researching aspects of African jazz. And this album leapt onto my radar screen, and I had to snap it up. It's a 2014 reissue on the Adventure and Sound label from a South African jazz group called the Jazz Epistles. The album's called Verse Plus One. The Jazz Epistles recorded this in 1959, and it was originally released on the Continental label, and original copies are beyond rare. I mean, they if they pop up, they go for just mad money. So I was very, very happy to get this reissue. There are only 500 copies of this, so if it's interesting to you, I wouldn't sleep on it too long. But the Jazz Epistles, as I said, they were a South African jazz group. By all accounts, they're the first all-black South African jazz group to record an album. Shortly after its release, a number of the musicians latched on to a European tour of an African musical. And while they were out, the very tragic Sharpsville massacre occurred, and the horrific grips of apartheid were in place and active at the time. So a number of the musicians stayed out in exile. A couple of the musicians you'll know, the pianist Dollar Brand, a.k.a. Abdul Ibrahim, and the trumpeter Hugh Masekela were prominent members of the Jazz Epistles. There's a sax player that I wish we would know so much more from, Kippy Moaketsi. Amazing, immense player, but he got caught in the wave of apartheid and just didn't make it out like some of these other guys did, and tragically died young, and just was under-recorded and underappreciated, but truly a pleasure to listen to here. As I said, this was recorded in 1959. The tapes or tape held up very well. It sounds wonderful, and did just a really good job with the reissue. The group is a bebop, hard bop influenced group, kind of modeled after Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. So it's really interesting to me that you have music from Africa that made its way to the United States in the form of blues and then jazz, and then here American jazz is making its way back to Africa, and just that cross-pollination is really cool to me. So again, just an immensely historic piece that has seen the light of day again. Verse Plus One by the Jazz Epistles. Yeah, really, really pleased to have scored this. So check it out if you have a chance. Well, fast forward 20 years in the career of Dollar Brand, and I revisited one of my all-time favorites. It's called African Marketplace. It's from 1980 on the Elektra label, and it features a larger group than you'll normally hear with Dollar Brand. It's a 12-piece group with some great players like Carlos Ward on sax, Craig Harris on trombone, Cecil McBee on bass, people like this. And it works with folk themes that Dollar Brand heard growing up in South Africa, and it is reinterpreted. Oh, it's just so cool. I mean, basically, this album is sort of dripping in love, and I don't mean that, in a saccharine way. It's a very reverential album. The love is expressed both very joyfully, but there's sorrow as well. But it is steeped in love and looking back, growing up. The sound, colors, and textures are very fitting. They kind of go hand in hand with the colors and textures of the cover and the colors and textures that one might experience in an African marketplace. It truly is one of the most cohesive albums I've ever heard, from the first note to the last. It really holds up as a theme all the way through, and the variations that come with it. So I think this is just fantastic. Should be able to pick it up relatively inexpensively today, but I do recommend it. It's that good. It's from 1980 on the Elektra label, African Marketplace by Dollar Brand, aka Abdullah Ibrahim. Yeah. Well, continuing under the influence of Dollar Brand and South African jazz, I offer up Trevor Watts's Moiré music. It's an album called With One Voice. It was released in 1988 on Trevor Watts's own Arc label. And Trevor Watts will be familiar to some of you that are into free improvised music, as he was a founding and longtime member of the Spontaneous Music Ensemble. But he also had an interest in highly rhythmic, highly layered, highly melodic music. And with his group, Moiré Music, he speaks along the group with one voice. It is a stunner. This is a live recording from 1988. It features a 9-piece group of a couple of sax players, a couple of keyboardists, a couple of African percussionists from Ghana. So you've got the Guy Warren connection. The bass player, Colin Gibson, once played with Ginger Baker's Air Force. So again, that connection. An accordionist. So it is just a beautifully layered, dense, overlapping fabric of melody and rhythm, kind of steeped in that South African vibe. Amazing. There's one song on side 2 called Themes for America No. 2. 19 minutes of pure joy. It is easily one of the most joyful records I've ever heard. And the way it just evolves and shifts in these compositions, and they are composed Even though Trevor Watts was in Spontaneous Music Ensemble, this is very, very composed and measured out music. And it is just, again, it is a group, amazing group that plays with one voice. It's wow. I'm speechless. I can't recommend it highly enough. Yeah. Amazing stuff. And I urge you really to check it out. These don't come around very often, but I urge you to seek this out. Yeah. With one voice, Trevor Watts' Moiré music from 1988 on Arc Records. Well, moving on to a rather intriguing album from the great British jazz drummer John Stevens. It's called Freebop. It's from 1982 on Affinity Records. Now, the connection here is obvious, as John Stevens was also a founding member of the Spontaneous Music Ensemble, along with Trevor Watts. And the further connection is that John Stevens, along with Trevor Watts, was interested in rhythm bands, essentially, as Trevor Watts was as well. Now, as the title indicates, Freebop, it's exactly what is going on here. It's a mix of musicians that come from two camps, from the free improvised side of jazz to the bebop side of jazz. And on the surface, you would think this is a train wreck waiting to happen. But somehow, these guys navigate these murky waters and really do meet in the middle. It's really impressive what they came out with. Along with John Stevens, you have Paul Rutherford from SME, and the guy that really stood out for me was an alto player, Pete King from the bebop world. I was unaware of Pete King, but man, I sure am now. Really incredible player who did a great job of stretching out beyond the boundaries of bebop, again, to sort of meet in the middle here. So very, very little interesting one-off that was recorded live. So there's a lot of that live energy that's infused here. So should be able to find this relatively inexpensively. So scope it out. It's beyond curious. It's good, and happy to have it. So, Freebop by John Stevens from 1982 on Affinity Records. All right, so continuing to hang out in the British jazz arena, but traveling via South Africa. This is the Chris McGregor Septet. It's an album called Up to Earth. It was recorded in 1969, but not released until 2008 on the Stanford Audio label. It's a gatefold, some nice photos of the group. Single album. Chris McGregor, of course, was a South African exile in Britain. He had been a member of an integrated group called the Blue Notes. Great South African group, but they hightailed it to get away from apartheid. Landed in London, and Chris McGregor made a connection with the great producer Joe Boyd, who had produced early Pink Floyd, Nick Drake, Fairport Convention, and alike. This album was recorded, it was mastered, some test pressings were made, and then it hit the shelf for some other projects. This was actually recorded before Chris McGregor's Brotherhood of Breath album, which was also Joe Boyd produced. But it stayed in the shadows until 2008. I'm glad it came out. You're not going to believe this group. This is immense. Of course, you got Chris McGregor on piano, Bar Phillips or Danny Thompson on double bass, Louis Maholo, Dudu Pokwana, and Mongezi Feza from the Blue Notes are playing drums, alto saxophone, and trumpet, respectively. And from the British avant-garde side, you've got John Surman on baritone sax and bass clarinet, and Evan Parker on tenor saxophone. So again, there's a connection to the Spontaneous Music Ensemble. So there's kind of a triple header here between South Africa, London, and Spontaneous Music Ensemble. As you can imagine, this album is quite out there in a good way. I mean, it travels a distance. Yeah, it is just, yeah, it's just one of those that, you know, the winds just blew a different direction at the time, and this might have been a little too edgy, a little too outside for the powers that be, but thankfully it's made its way back out. It's really cool for those of you who, you know, kind of into the, the more Albert Eiler side of life. This will be for you. So it's out there. Go snag it if you're interested. It's very cool. The Chris McGregor Septet, Up to Earth, on the Stanford Audio label from 2008. Well, staying on the outer edges of the jazz landscape, I bring you a duet with the drummer Stu Martin and reed player John Surman, who was featured prominently on the previous Chris McGregor album. This is a 1975 recording called Live at Woodstock Town Hall, and it came out on the Dawn Records label. Stu Martin and John Surman make up 2/3 of a great British avant-garde trio called The Trio that also included the bassist Bar Phillips. But here as a duo, they also play with some sequenced synthesizer that Stu Martin offers. I know John Surman, you know, for a number of years has had an interest in kind of the combination of reeds and electronics, and they play with it here. Now, this is a part of John Surman's career where he was still all about energy and just really kicking ass, specifically with his baritone sax. Stu Martin could definitely keep up with him. But also, as I said, Stu Martin, in instances, lays down kind of a synthesizer bass, kind of a throb bass level for these guys to interact with. And it works really well. It's very interesting. But yeah, they're kind of coming at it with kind of a scorched earth mentality, and they bring it. So yeah, if you're a John Surman fan, definitely check this out. You might want this part of your collection arsenal. Again, it's from 1975 on the Dawn Records label, Live at Woodstock Town Hall with Stu Martin and John Surman. Well, if the last album was living on the outer edges of the jazz landscape, this album totally leaves the Earth's atmosphere. It's a duet with the great British reed man Evan Parker and an experimental electronic sound and noise artist named John Wiese. It came out in 2010 on the German Pan label. The title of the album is C-Section. It's a really, really cool package where you've got a thick printed vinyl sleeve that has those graphics that cover around the inner sleeve. So it has kind of a Marcel Duchamp kind of Dada feel to it. The music, for me, is quite reminiscent of the Spontaneous Music Ensemble, which, Evan Parker was an early member. Of course, he was a member of the Chris McGregor album that I showed earlier. John Wiese and his little noise constructions and squonks, squeaks, burbles, and whatnot, for me, almost occupy a similar space that Derek Bailey's guitar did in the early Spontaneous Music Ensemble. It's not, by any stretch of the imagination, an everyday listen. However, I have sort of changed my opinion about something as I've been thinking about this type of music. That, it's easy for one to say, and I've said it many, many times, that it's music that's not for everyone. And I realized, at least from my perspective, that I was looking at that incorrectly. That this music is for everyone. It's just whether me or you as an individual decides to take the challenge, to explore, to accept, deny, whatever. And that goes for any and all music. There's quite a bit of music that, either I'm not willing to accept it or I've heard it and don't care for it too much. But that's on me. That's not on the artist. So I do see it as all music is intended for everyone. It's up to each individual of how they interact with it. So if you'd like to continue that discussion, just comment away. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. But anyway, a very, very outward bound, I mean, it's not even outward bound, it's out there. But I find this music to be challenging and interesting, and it's cool on a number of levels, starting with the packaging. A 2010 German release on Pan Records, C-Section by Evan Parker and John Wiese. And we have arrived. We have arrived at a magical, magical place. Quick backstory. My daughter goes to the Oberlin Conservatory of Music, which is outside Cleveland, Ohio. She is a voice performance major, which means basically she's singing classically. It's classically trained. She's singing opera, arias, art songs, all of those kinds of things. Oberlin is a small community of about 9,000 people, but the college is quite well known in the sciences and in music. There is a small record shop there called Hanson Records. It occupies one room that's not much bigger than my record room here. It's run by a gentleman named Aaron Dillaway, who is an experimental electronic noise artist of some note. And so in this small room is quite an amazing collection that they have to offer of noise music, music concrete, 20th century music, electronic. One of the more impressive sections of that area that you'll ever see. Of course, like a lot of record stores, they have a wall of fame. And I walked in, and like a beacon, I was confronted with what is just an absolute... I know, shut up and show it. It's as if it just came out of the shrink wrap. It's an original stereo, A Love Supreme. It's the best condition I've ever seen. And it was about a third of the price that you would pay on eBay or Discogs. I mean, there was just no hesitation. It had, of course, the original inner sleeve, and I had to scope it out because it was so clean, so fresh. But I did look in the dead wax, and it did say it had the Van Gelder stamp in there. So at that point, I knew that it was the real thing, and it is the most beautifully stunning copy I have ever seen. I mean, the corners are tight. It is just... what can you say? I mean, I don't need to say anything about the album itself. Everyone knows it. But, I don't pursue OGs as much as others do. If they present themselves in kind of an organic, natural way and the price is right, sure, I'll step up to the plate and go for it. But this was a no-brainer. And, what can I say? Jesus, if you could marry a record, I'd propose right now. But anyway, so that was my desert. I mean, geez, you got to do it. It's incredible. So anyway, that's it for this edition of the Vinyl Orgy. And thanks again to new subscribers. Thanks again to the old guard who hangs in there. And as usual, do what you can to keep it in the groove. I'll see you next time.